Hey, ladies, welcome to Black Women Making Money, the Sunday edition. Super happy to have everybody here this evening. If you are listening to the replay, definitely put replay in the comments, or better yet, tell me something that you think with regards to this topic. We want to have a super elevated conversation with regards to this. So, this is not racism, white supremacy. That's a level one discussion. We really want to have a more sophisticated discussion with regards to tonight's topic. So, again, hit the thumbs up button for me. And this is going to be a longer conversation. I have a lot to say. And more importantly, this woman, Heather McDonald, has been doing a lot of talking with regards to this conversation. I have looked at a lot of her videos. She wrote a book called When Race Trumps Merit. And she has been talking a lot, but not to Black people or Black audiences. There was only one podcast that I saw where she actually was talking to another Black person, and that Black person didn't really push back, too much. But I invited her to come and speak with us. Of course, she's a fellow at the Manhattan Institute, and I don't even know if she got the message, blah, blah, blah. But we're going to take various clips from her conversations on other podcasts and talk about it from our point of view with regards to being an upwardly mobile Black woman. This is a very serious conversation just because, as upwardly mobile Black women, and if you have children or grandchildren, or even yourself as you're going through your career, things are shifting in this country. Things are changing in this country. The conservatives have spent the last 30 to 40 years packing the courts. And as a result, things like affirmative action are more popular than we think. Companies want to do diversity, equity, and inclusion. However, with the threat of legal action, and we're going to see some of the legal action that's coming forth in schools, medicine, 8A, government contracting is on the chopping block. All sorts of things are on the chopping block. We want to really come up with a strategy with regards to this. So tonight's conversation is going to be long. About halfway through, a little bit more than halfway through, I'll drop the link so that you all can come and talk and share your comments with me. So before I forget, since my girl Shar is here, hello Shar, if you wouldn't mind signing up for our email list, bwmakingmoney.com. One of the solutions that we have to this issue is that we need to have networks. We need to have multicultural networks. In the last live stream we had, somebody asked me to do a session on networking. I'm going to do one on YouTube. However, I'm going to do a separate one on Zoom for all of you ladies. But the only way for you to get an invitation to that is bwmakingmoney.com. The one that we're going to do in Zoom will not cost you anything, but we're going to get together and actively put together a networking plan for all of you. So it will be customized, but the only way you can get the invitation is to get on my email list, bwmakingmoney.com. That'll be in the next couple of weeks. So, hey, Rana, good to see you. You're saying it would be more difficult to enter with merit depending what school districts you attend. I absolutely agree. We're going to talk about that tonight. D'Ambrosia saying, wow, making it to a live first time in months. D'Ambrosia, I'm still praying for you. I know that things are a little tough right now, but you are always in my thoughts, and I'm so glad you made it here for a live. So yes, everybody. And again, sign up, exclusive content and an invitation to that masterclass on networking and creating your networking plan, bwmakingmoney.com. Okay. Let's jump right in. First thing I got to say, because I have so many videos tonight, is fair use, fair use. I am going to be playing a lot of different video interviews that Heather McDonald has been doing in order to educate. So fair use, fair use, fair use for everything that I'm using tonight. So D'Ambrosia saying thank you. You're welcome. Also, Cherie will be contacting you soon. Yeah, sure. Your book is out. Oh, your book is almost done. Fantastic. Good to hear. All right. Let's first of all, we got a lot to talk about tonight with regards to this topic. So we're going to jump right in. And the first thing we are going to do is talk about where is my, I hate when this happens. Hold on, everybody. I want to actually go to her book. I have it pulled up, but my screen is acting a little wonky. Here we go. Here we go. Okay. So the first thing I wanted to share with you is just her overall book and what the premise of her book is. So her book is When Race Trumps Merit, how the pursuit of equity sacrifices excellence, destroys beauty, and threatens lives. And this literally just came out this year. She's been doing a lot of interviews with um, different groups and things like that. I've only seen her do one interview with one Black person. I would love for her to do an interview with another Black scholar, not Black scholar, like Black media, really. But I kind of was thinking like, not the Breakfast Club because they wouldn't know what to ask, and not Roland Martin because he would like overtalk her and it would just be a shit show. But maybe like a Tavis Smiley or somebody like that that could ask her questions from our point of view as to some of the concerns that we would have based on the way that she's seeing things. And the reason why um, I would want to hear somebody push back from a more of a B1 perspective is because I have concerns about some of the solutions that she sees or some of the big issues that she sees. And yeah, but you all going to hear a lot from her today because I'm going to show you various clips. But this is what her book is about. It says, does your workplace have too few Black people in top jobs? It's racist. This is the description of her book. Does the advanced math and science high school in your city have too many Asians? It's racist. Does your local museum employ too many white women? It's racist too. After the Black Lives Matter protests of 2020, prestigious American institutions from the medical profession to the fine arts pleaded guilty to systemic racism. How else explain why Blacks are overrepresented in prisons and underrepresented in C-suites and faculty lounges? Their leaders asked. The official answer for those disparities is, quote, disparate impact, a once obscure legal theory that is now transforming our world. Any traditional standard of behavior or achievement that impedes exact racial proportionality in any enterprise is now presumed racist. Medical school admissions tests, expectations of scientific accomplishments in the award of research grants, the enforcement of criminal law, all are under assault because they have a disparate impact on underrepresented minorities. When Race Trumps Merit, this is her book, When Race Trumps Merit provides an alternative explanation for those racial disparities. It is a large academic skills gap that causes the lack of proportional representation in our most meritocratic organizations and large differences in criminal offending that account for the radically disproportionate prison population. The need for such a corrective argument could not be more urgent. Federal science agencies now treat researchers' skin color as a scientific qualification. Museums and orchestras choose which art and music to promote based on race. Police officers avoid making arrests and prosecutors decline to bring charges to avoid disparate impact on minority criminals. When race trumps merit breaks powerful taboos, but it is driven by a sense of alarm supported by detailed case studies of how disparate impact thinking is jeopardizing scientific progress, destroying public order, and poisoning the appreciation of art and culture. As long as alleged racism remains the only allowable explanation for racial differences, we will continue tearing down excellence and putting lives as well as civilizational achievement at risk. So, this is the beginning. I'm sure you all have a lot that you're thinking about with regards to this. So, hey Roma, good to see you. But yeah, so this is the beginning of her premise. And you may say again, Sheree, like, why are we covering this? What are you doing? Why are we giving oxygen to this? We are giving oxygen to this because when I started listening to her interviews, at first I admit, I was like, what the hell is she talking about? I was upset. Then I took a step back, and there were certain things that she said that I had to ask myself, are these things true? Now, Black people are not inferior. I don't care what anybody says. Um, but we do have an academic skills gap. And it is being used, it's always been used in order to keep Black people out of certain levels of achievement. But some of the skills gap is on us as Black mothers with regards to what we are doing when the child is, conceived, um, when they're born, when they're 1 years old, 2 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old, 7 years old. And then some of it is the system, right? These things are also going to start seeping into every area of life. And our grandparents always told us that we had to be 3 times as good in order to get half as much. That's coming back. That's coming back. So, several months ago, there was a woman, Black woman named Elise Renee, and we did a session of hers. We looked at one of her videos where she talked about how she's tired of Black excellence, and I said that is going to bite us in the butt. Um, this is the reason why, because when race trumps merit is starting to seep into every area of life with regards to the overturning of DEI programs, affirmative action, 8A, etc. And if we are not prepared for this as upwardly mobile Black women, then we are going to be hurt financially and socioeconomically. So that's why I want to have this conversation. Again, this is going to be a longer conversation tonight, but I did want to like start off with the description of her book. I also want to say that we don't want to slap the term racist or racism on Heather either, right? Um, and you can privately. However, I'm not so quick, as you all know, to slap racist on anybody uh, quickly, right? I um, I think that there's a tightrope that we're going to need to tread in order to make sure that we are going to end up on top. Individually, I can't help collectively, right? I can't help collectively. But individually, there are going to be certain tightropes, certain things that we're going to need to do in order to make sure that we are in a position to win. Because this train is coming. And if we're listening to certain people on YouTube who are just like, you know, reparations and B1 and all of these things, but they don't have anything beyond that, then we as upwardly mobile Black women are going to lose. However, if we're able to have this conversation with regard to Heather and the things that she's discussing, then I think that there are ways again that we can win. So, AE is in the building. Where is the race trumps merit conversation supposed to be? What do you mean by that? Oh, is this a workplace or education? It's everywhere. It's everywhere. So it started off with college, but now it has seeped to K through 12. Now it has seeped to medicine and who gets in a medical school. Now it is seeping into who's getting research grants. Now it is seeping into who's getting government contracts. This has all happened um, since the Harvard case a couple of months ago, AE. This has all happened since then. Selfish Love is in the building saying hello. Um, AE is saying also, did not Ben Shapiro already say he mentioned a study that when it comes to Black women and white women, even with single home families and economic barriers, Black women and white women outcomes are basically equal? Uh, he may have said that. I don't follow Ben Shapiro that closely, so I don't know. I would question that. But, if that's the stats, then those are the stats. I do know that Black women are more likely than white women to be single mothers, um, on a percentage of, on a per capita basis, on a percentage of the population. Um, but yeah, I don't know enough about what Ben Shapiro has been talking about. Um, One more thing I want to say just before I show the first video of Heather is that Heather is mostly talking about an academic and an arts, like that's her lane, talking about academics, getting into honors classes in K through 12, getting into college, getting medical research grants, things like that. And the second lane she really talks about is like classical arts. So, people playing Bach and Beethoven and things like that. There are other ways that we can win. We can win by learning tech, being in the tech industry, or we can win through entrepreneurship, or we can win through, like me, I'm a loan officer, etc. So even though we're having this discussion tonight and it feels like a lot of doors are going to be slammed in our faces, number one, we can win through academics, but number two, even more importantly, there are other ways to win as well. So, I wanted to make that statement as well, because some of this is going to be pretty hard to hear as we have this conversation tonight. AE is saying that study is online, though I just mentioned a YouTuber. Okay. Okay. Door slammed in your face. What? Just keep listening, AE. Just keep listening. Okay. So let's go through. Y'all gonna be mad when you hear this first video that we're gonna go through. The first video that we're gonna go through is Black Privilege and Victimhood When Race Trumps Merit. And this is Heather McDonald being interviewed by this British guy. The reason I wanted to show this one first is because she does a very good job in a couple of minutes of explaining her position. So we're gonna listen to this, and fair use again, fair use for the YouTube people, fair use. This is for education purposes.
This is an extraordinarily important book, Heather, I think. And we obviously follow events in America. It's pretty much the same here.
Yes.
I wonder whether you could actually start by explaining to us a concept which runs through the book, which is something called disparate impact. Once you explain it, I know it become crystal clear, but could you explain what you mean by that?
Right. Peter, disparate impact is the concept that if any kind of meritocratic standard has a disproportionately negative effect on, above all, Blacks, it is a per se racist standard. So we have in the United States standardized, computer graded, objective, anonymous admissions tests to get into college that evaluate high school seniors' academic skills.
Right.
And Black students do particularly poorly on the SATs. And therefore, the SAT exam as a marker of college readiness has a disparate impact on Blacks. What we have decided in the United States now, that we will tear down the standards rather than say meet the standards, put in some more effort and meet the standards. If a medical school uses a similar test, the medical college admissions test, which is the medical version of our SATs, again, colorblind, objective, neutral, computer graded. Again, Blacks do poorly on the MCATs. The MCATs have a disparate impact on Blacks. Therefore, we are lowering the bar for the MCATs. There's a movement afoot to get rid of the MCATs as a way of evaluating medical applicants.
Okay, AE, I see your comment here. I want to address this because this is a good point. However, this is not what Heather is saying, and I would challenge you on this based on what she's saying. You're saying here, you're assuming that this is bad for Black women. This is not bad for young Black women, though, maybe older Black women. Nobody brings up the generation gap. Young people, regardless of race, Gen Z, have skills, older people know. Heather is not saying this. Heather is saying today, 66% of Black kids who are graduating from high school do not have basic reading and math skills. She is also saying for people who want to get into the elite schools, that we have less than 1% of Black youth that can do math at a level that would enable them to get into the most elite schools and study science. That is what she's saying. So unfortunately, fortunately, Gen Z does have skills. However, this is not a generational thing. From an academic point of view, she's saying no matter if you're younger or older, that we do not have the skills to keep up and to be in these institutions. Okay, so that is the reason why I wanted to go over this, and this is some of the things that she's talking about. You're asking here, what is her point? That is not a thesis you just said. You just stated facts. Oh, I think she just stated, I think okay, so let's slow down here because you're writing a lot of stuff. I want to play several clips of her so that you can hear her thesis. Right? Okay. Because I would rather her say it than like for me to say it, right?
This is happening. It's been going on for decades. Any kind of minimal literacy test for qualifying people for taking on firefighting jobs or police jobs. There again, traditionally, you have had Blacks scoring much lower on those exams. And so we sue saying the exams are racist and we throw out the exams. This, Peter, is a recipe for civilizational suicide. We are destroying the concept of excellence. We are removing incentives for achievement, hard work, and accomplishment. And we are asking not just for mediocrity, but for actual threats to human lives, whether it's with regards to the qualifications of doctors, with how we do medical research, how we do our police training, and in the case of the criminal law system, the reason why crime has been shooting up to astronomical levels and we've seen record-breaking increases since the George Floyd race riots is we're also not enforcing the criminal law in the United States, Peter, because it too has a disparate impact on Black criminals.
Okay, so number one, Black people are about to be the scapegoat for this. Yes, I hear it, but all of the laws that are being challenged with regards to meritocracy and things like that, it is usually Black people who are being discussed in these legal proceedings. The first venture capital fund There are a lot of venture capital funds out there, and I will say a lot of venture capital funds. There are venture capital funds out there that target Jewish, for example, individuals or Hispanic individuals or women of color, etc. However, the very first um, lawsuit that has been filed has been against the Fearless Fund, which goes specifically to Black women. So, what she's saying here, we need to understand the psyche of this, because we are going to have to really shift the way that we are um, over the next 20, 30, 50 years, shift the way that we are engaging with corporations, with politics, etc. Let's keep going.
So we are putting, above all, Black lives at risk under this phony idea that any neutral colorblind standard that has a disparate impact on an underrepresented minority is per se racist.
So basically, you can't actually demur from that one definition, isn't that right? That basically a little bit like the idea of equity as opposed to equality. You know, essentially, this must be the reason, and if you don't have the right proportion of ethnic minority or whatever, somehow this automatically makes you racist, makes the organization racist, or that's really what you're saying.
That's, you've put your finger on it, Peter. Right now in the United States, the only allowable explanation for any racial disparity in any mainstream institution, whether it's a cancer research lab, whether it's a law firm, whether it's a bank, whether it's a foundation, whether it's a news desk, if there are not proportional numbers of underrepresented minorities there, the only allowable explanation is racism.
Yeah.
It's a racist test. It's a racist qualification. These tests have a disparate impact. What I hope to do is provide people with the actual explanation.
Okay, so that's what she says her book does. So I want to come back to Rana's thing here. Rana is saying they might as well get rid of these tests or change the educational system. Here's the thing that she's saying. She's saying that over the past several decades, probably a couple of decades, I should say, they have been getting rid of the tests. They have been lowering the standard, and or they've been getting rid of the tests, whether it is to get into um, uh, academic institutions, like super high level academic institutions. And that could be in the K through 12 level as well as the university. Or she also mentioned some of the police tests, or things like that for people to get into. She is basically saying we have lowered the standards because 13%, for example, of certain institutions were not Black, and therefore um, the excellence within these institutions have eroded. And the only reason I'm bringing this up is because we are starting to see court cases that are going in and being, sorry, court cases, I can't even speak tonight, court cases that are being used to challenge these things. And just like affirmative action at Harvard and University of North Carolina, now you have corporations and other people basically saying, oh my goodness, we don't think we're going to push for DEI anymore, or things like that. So the strategy we have had over the past 20 years is not going to be as effective. That's the reason why we're having this conversation this evening. Even 8A, which is for government contractors, the 8A program has been put on pause. So the way we compete, we're going to have to shift that, the way we compete. So AE is saying these standards were already lowered to benefit white women and white men. Here's the thing, we're the scapegoat, AE. We're the scapegoat. So we have to actually have our eyes open with regards to this as well. And the what do you call it? The backup information, the backup data that's being provided is being provided on Black people. It's not being provided on white women and white men. So we have to be honest about these conversations and figure out how we as upwardly mobile Black women are going to navigate this thing. Let's keep listening a little bit more.
We are not a racist society. Our standards are not racist. We were a racist society. America was an apartheid state. It was a white supremacist state. I have no hesitation about admitting that. I also have no hesitation in stating without qualification that that is not the reality today.
Okay, so she has said several times, and I wanted to play this for everybody because she has said in several interviews that America was racist, right? So at least I give her credit for saying that. I have not heard anybody ask her, do you understand why these programs were put in place? Because at one point, you had Black people who were well qualified uh, being turned down for these specific opportunities. I have listened to probably 10 interviews of her. She says this piece of it continually, but she doesn't say like the following piece. Now her thing is America's no longer racist and we need to get rid of these programs because it's now starting to cripple our infrastructure with regards to medical research and the highest elite universities and things like that. So this is, and I'm bringing this up again because I see that in the next 10 years or so, actually I gave it 5 years for DEI and affirmative action and all of that to be over. In the next 10, 15 years, like the pendulum is swinging, ladies. So we got to be prepared for this. Let's keep listening.
The reality today is not white privilege in America, it is Black privilege. I will believe in white privilege when I hear of a Black high school senior applying to college who checks the white box in the race box.
And we all know that that is not Black privilege versus white privilege. Just being able to check the black box is not like privilege. So we all know that. But this is I've heard her say this in a couple of interviews. This is the thought process is that because I'm able to put Black and woman in on an application, that is Black privilege. And of course, we all know that that's not the case.
Because he thinks that being white will be an advantage to him in getting into college. The reality is this: if you are a heterosexual white male in the United States today, you are at the bottom of the totem pole. You will be the last considered, the last hired, and the first fired. So Black privilege is our reality. I want to provide an alternative explanation for why we do not have exact racial proportionality in our mainstream institutions, and that is the academic skills gap. It is vast.
Okay, so she's saying the alternative reason for us not us having racial disparity is not racism, it is the academic skills gap. And yeah, there is an academic skills gap. There is, ladies. We have to be honest with that. But she is like missing some things as well. So the answer, in my opinion, is somewhere in the middle. I saw True Mystique is in the building. Hello, True Mystique. Good to see you. All right, let's keep going. You're saying, hold on, what the heck is she saying? Because no, ma'am. Look, at least she's consistent, but like, I really would love for her to come on Black Media. The only person I could think of where I could probably stomach her, I could stomach the interviewer because I think the interviewer would do the right pushback, is like a Tavis Smiley. I don't see her going on the Breakfast Club, even though it get a lot of views. Like, I don't think Charlemagne and them could really question her appropriately. I don't see it being a Roland Martin because he wouldn't let her speak, But I would really love for her, since she talks so much about Black people, I would love for her to come and do real Black media. Maybe Ebony K. Williams would be a great person for her to talk to. But I really would love for her to come and defend this amongst Black people on Black media. Maybe an Ebony K. Williams would be a great person as well, because I kind of feel like the lawyer in her would be able to push back on some of these notions. True Mystique, buckle up. She is talking about her book, which is When Race Trumps Merit. And she is talking about the fact that having racial preferences when it comes to school or becoming a doctor or getting research grants or even the arts, like the classical arts, we should not have racial preferences. Everything should be meritocratic. And all of her examples are Black people with regards to the academic skills gap. So that's what she's talking about. You think she's grasping for straws, but here's the thing, True Mystique. Her arguments are being used by, and I'm not saying her arguments specifically, I mean, this is the sentiment, is being used in these court cases. So over the past 20 years or so, 20, 30 years, the conservatives, of which I am conservative, but I don't agree with all of this, the conservatives have been stacking the courts. So while we have the public's approval, they are going through the courts in order to get what they want, which is the removal of affirmative action and moving it back to meritocracy. And it's upwardly mobile Black women. This is the one thing I want you to understand is if you do not have the 4 things I've been telling you, your technical skills, your soft skills, most importantly, your multicultural networks, who you know and who knows you is going to be so important. And your resources, if you don't have those 4 things, it is going to be very difficult for you. Very, very difficult for you. So today's conversation is understanding the psychology of what is happening and how we're going to be able to maneuver. Yeah, you're saying Ebony would be perfect. I think Ebony would be a perfect. I would watch an interview between Ebony K. Williams and Heather McDonald, and I think something like that needs to happen. Heather McDonald did do a debate at MIT about this, but those ladies were a bit too, the people that debated her were a bit too, it was a bit too scholarly, and we need somebody who's like on the ground who can, put it more in layman's terms. Let's just say that. So let's keep listening to this. She has a little bit more she's going to say in this video, and then we're going to watch the next one.
Here is the sad reality, Peter, that Americans are so non-white supremacists that if they close their ears to these truths, they do not want to hear it. But this is the fact that explains why when you look at a research lab that is trying to solve Alzheimer's disease or Parkinson's or early stage dementia, it is not likely to have 13% Black oncologists. Here's the reality. 66% of Black 12th graders, our 12th grade is the final year.
I want you all to listen to this very, very carefully because she's about to do the stats here. And ladies, we have to be honest. We have to be honest. We have to be honest about our youth. There is an academic skills gap. There is an academic skills gap. So she has data, and now she's turning that data to fit a narrative, but we do have to do something about the data within our community. And I just mean within your households, because I'm not here to save the Black community. But this is important. So I want you to listen very closely to the next minute as she goes through the data.
It is not likely to have 13% Black oncologists. Here's the reality. 66% of Black 12th graders, our 12th grade is the final year of high school before a student begins college. So we're looking at 17 and 18-year-olds here. 66% of Black 12th graders do not possess even partial mastery of basic 12th grade math skills, which are defined as being able to do arithmetic or read a graph. 8% of Black 12th graders are competent in basic 12th grade math, and the number who are advanced in 12th grade math is too small to show up statistically. The picture is not much better in reading. 50% of Black 12th graders do not possess even partial mastery of basic 12th grade reading skills. That means that you can have diversity, which is the goal of every single American institution today, or you can have meritocracy. You cannot have both. But right now, as you say, Peter, the only allowable explanation is racism for racial disparities. And as long as that is the case, it is all coming down. Every institution of civilization is coming down.
Whew. Okay, I know that was a lot. But it's important for us to hear these things from a rational, upwardly mobile point of view. Some of what she's saying, even though it hurts my heart, some of what she's saying is true with regards to, I don't know if it's the truth. I'm going to say, I'm going to trust her data. If she is saying that the reason we don't have 13% of Black oncologists working in these research institutions is because less than 1% of our students who are graduating have the academic skills in order to go into these fields, then that's a real problem. That's a real problem. And it is something that we have to, in my opinion, we have to kind of take a step back and say, okay, is this true? And if that is the case, what can we do within our households? If our kids are academically inclined and, they want to go to an elite institution, what can we do? What are we missing that other cultures, other students are getting, right? Why are you saying I never said her thesis? Well, we have more videos to watch, but that's her thesis. And she never stated her thesis. Yes, she did. So her thesis is this. Her thesis is that the American institutions of science and medicine are weaker than they used to be because American institutions want to have racial balance. Those are the things that we have been fighting for, right? However, she is saying that 1%, less than 1% of Black students have the academic aptitude to be in these institutions. And we, for the past 50, 60 years, have been crying racism. We want to see 13%. If we have 13% of the population, we should have 13% of the teaching staff in these schools. We should have 13% of the students. Her thesis is we do not have the academic skills to be there. That is her thesis. That is her thesis. And okay, so her conclusion was that the world is ending. The world is not coming to an end. She was being a bit hyperbolic, but she is saying that the prestige of the academic institutions are being seriously crippled, and China and Russia and other places that do not have these requirements for racial diversity are going to start to beat us and are going to start to excel beyond us. Okay, that's what she's saying. So You're saying here, I'm not disagreeing with the data, but that's saying that diversity hiring is weakening these institutions. Yeah, look, I think it's important again for us to totally be honest. And like once the initial sting wears off, ask ourselves, are there things that she's saying that's true? Are there things we can do within our own households to strengthen our own households? Are there ways, because again, affirmative action is out at the college level, it's being removed in K through 12. It's being removed with regards to that venture capital fund for Black women is being sued now. And if they win that case, then you will not have any more VC funds specifically for Black people, Black women. Having that being sued now, there are organizations like that, like Blackest Tech and things like that. Suppose all of a sudden people start suing companies that are investing in educating Black people to get into tech, like disproportionately helping Black people get into tech and things like that. This could potentially have a long-term effect. So what I'm saying is, if there's something you want to do, I'd suggest you do it now. You got about 5 years, and then things are changing. Things are changing. And what this woman is saying, again, is not popular opinion, like, well, they're stacking the courts again. I just want to repeat that. They're stacking the courts, and the courts are about to rule based on Heather McDonald's thought pattern. And she's not the only one. She's just an archetype. She's just an archetype. So let's watch something else. So she did do an interview with a Black man named Glenn Lowry. He is conservative. And let's listen to a little bit of this interview here. Okay, I need to get to 4039. Hold on, everybody. Come here and play.
I want to ask you something else, though, before we move on. I want to talk about the arts, and I want to talk about the law.
Okay, we're about to talk about the arts and the law, everybody. The arts and the law. Let's listen to this.
These are other venues in which you argue in your book that the pursuit of racial equity is undermining the integrity of the enterprise. But I want to ask you about medicine, because you hear it every time this issue of racism in medicine is referred to. There are huge disparities in health outcomes by race. Higher infant mortality, higher maternal mortality in birth, greater mortality and morbidity from a wide range of diseases, diabetes, hypertension.
And I'm glad he asked her this question, because this is my concern with us not having Black representation in medicine are our medical needs really going to be taken care of? So let's listen to him ask this question and her answer it.
And so on. And there are allegations of racism in the delivery of care. Doctors being less attuned to report of pain in the patients or whatever. I don't know the whole landscape well enough to be able to give it in a granular kind of articulation, but the basic claim is we see that differences in health outcomes lower life expectancy for Black people and so on. And we impute, Tuskegee experiment kind of references to the fact that the healthcare system is racist. Surely this perception of life and death differences of outcomes that are to some degree a consequence of racial differences of treatment by the healthcare system is part of the impetus for medical schools in our post-racial reckoning era to look at their navels and to ask themselves, what can we do to be sensitive to the fact of the overhang of race and racism in what we're supposed to be about, which is promoting the health and the well-being of all people in the population. So how do you process this part of the problem? Differences in health outcomes by race, a medical establishment that should be responsive to those differences, and a sense that the personnel issue is part of the problem. Not enough Black docs asking the right kind of questions or in engaging with people in a way that would be free from the taint of racism.
Hey, brown skin girls. Hope you're doing well. You're sitting here crying, girl. Don't cry. Don't cry. I have dark thoughts on how we handle this as Black women, especially, but I am a tech channel, so I won't even get into this. Hey, techies. Well, hello, brown skin girls. You know, it is something, again, that we need to look at with regards to, you had mentioned it as well, brown skin girls, economic mobility, a way to cut off economic mobility. Your economic mobility should not be cut off if you have, again, I will say it, top 10% in your field, technical skills, right? You need to be at the top, with regards to the technical skills in your field. You need to be at the top with regards to your soft skills, and you need to have a very strong multicultural network. So we're going to do a Zoom class with regards to how to network. You're going to come up with your own customized networking plan. It's going to be in the next couple of weeks. If you all want to come, no charge to attend. You just got to be on my email list, bwmakingmoney.com, in order to participate. So let us listen to her explanation with regards to Black maternal deaths and the other issues that we have, and having fewer Black doctors as part of the system.
Well, you're right. This is a life and death issue. And the medical schools now have decided that the only allowable explanation for these racially disparate health outcomes is racism on the part of doctors. And it is now taboo to talk about behavior in this case. It is always taboo to talk about behavioral differences, whether it's with regards to crime or with regards to behaviors that contribute to health outcomes. You cannot. So now we've learned that obesity is perfectly fine. You can't talk about trying to lower obesity because that is fat shaming. This has a huge the taboo about saying that obesity is actually a health problem is overwhelmingly driven by racial disparities. So that the medical schools have decided that the only allowable explanation is racism. So they are sending their doctors off to implicit bias training.
As they should go to implicit bias training, but not because of this, right? There are a lot of white TikTokers and social media influencers that have the health at any size thing. We did complain, and rightfully so, as Black women, that we cannot use the BMI because we tend to have bigger booties and we're a bit thicker, etc. I am not excusing obesity. I'm an obese woman myself. I would never blame that on racism, even though we do have food deserts and things like that. Of course, we know a lot of our food desert issues is because of crime. So this is why I'm saying Heather McDonald is not totally wrong. It is, important for us to recognize the nuance, but also push back on certain things that are not going to serve us. And AE mentioned, trying to solve massive issues. I'm definitely not trying to solve massive issues. I am trying to come here, let you know what's happening, and give you some individual tips that you can do with you or you and your family, especially you and your children that are underneath the ages of 25. And especially if you don't have kids now and you want to have kids, I've always said to you, the father of your children is going to be the most important financial decision you will ever make. And if you and he are not on the same team with regards to this and what is forthcoming, and making sure that your kids are academically excellent, if they are academically inclined, then they may run into some major issues as they grow up and try to get a job and try to buy a house and become financially independent. Let's keep listening to what she has to say here.
medical competencies that the American Association of Medical Colleges is now requiring doctors and medical students to show are competencies in understanding intersectionality, white privilege, white supremacy, converting time spent in learning how to diagnose patient symptoms and absorb the problem of drug interactions. Zero sum, all learning is zero sum. We are doing less of the medical school teaching and spending more time on white privilege theory. So they better be right that these disparate outcomes are due to doctor racism and not other explanations, which would include behavior, culture, possibly genetic predispositions to certain types of disease. Because if they're wrong in their wager, and what we should have been focusing on all along in trying to close these health disparities are things that patients have control over, which is medication compliance, prenatal care, postnatal care, showing up to appointments, being able to get to appointments. You know, people in poor communities have more challenging lives. Should we be focusing on making sure that they have transportation easily available that will allow them to show up to doctor's appointments? But I can tell you, if you talk to doctors in big inner city hospital systems that are often cutting edge, you know, it's a real.
Y'all, listen to this. She's talking about doctors that work at cutting edge hospital systems like Harvard Medical Institute. Listen to what she's going to say here, because I was like, okay, no, that's absolutely not correct.
Question whether wealth should affect one's access to top care. We in the West, and or at least in the United States, we sort of are willing to accept that. Other places think, no, it should be completely socialized and equalized, and being wealthy should not allow you to buy better care. But it's not always the case that being poor gets you the worst care, because if you're in inner city, you have access to Harvard Medical School doc.
And that's not true. That's not true. Like, if you live in the hood, in an inner city, even in Boston, you're most likely, and you don't have insurance, you're most likely going to be sent to whatever hospital is in that area, and you're not going to be able to walk into Harvard, you know, unless you're in the ER. So I don't know where she got that from. But, you know, let's keep listening.
Doctors. But if that's the case, you know, that it's all racism, then we're doing the right thing. But if it's behavior, then that's something we should focus on, and getting people into their care, making sure they can keep their appointments. So I would say that, oh, well, the problem is not enough Black doctors. I guess maybe it's the case that Black patients are more willing to follow medical, you know, drug compliance instructions. Hearing that from a Black doctor, I would say that's unfortunate. We wouldn't accept that in the opposite direction, that whites should have white doctors or Asians should have Asian doctors. It may be a reality. And so are we better off having racial preferences in our licensing of doctors in order to create a pool of Black doctors for Black patients? Or should we maintain meritocratic standards? My instinct would be to have meritocratic standards. So this is not an answer to the people who claim systemic racism, but you can ask doctors and they will say it's preposterous that we are treating patients differently. We believe in giving care to everybody. And I realize that is not an explanation that is going to carry any water with those who believe in implicit bias, because they would say that you may think you're not discriminating, but in fact you are. But it is amazing the fury with which people who deny that doctor systemic racism conceit, the fury with which those people are mowed down. There was a doctor at UCLA who was also on the board of the Journal of American Medical Association.
I want you to listen to this story here. I know she's rambling, but there's several things she said in here that I want you to that I wanted to highlight. So listen to this story. It's a minute, and then we'll be done with this section of it.
With which people who deny that doctor systemic racism conceit, the fury with which those people are mowed down. There was a doctor at UCLA who was also on the board of the Journal of American Medical Association, and he did a podcast on this issue of systemic racism in the medical profession. And he's a good Jewish doctor. He said, I was raised to abhor discrimination. My parents, we were in civil rights actions. There is nothing we think more abhorrent to our American identity than discrimination. And he said, I would say that the discourse should be less about systemic racism and more about socioeconomic disparities that may impede people living in low-income communities from having clean air. But let's not accuse doctors of racism, because by and large, we're not racist. Well, this doctor was thrown off the masthead of the Journal of the American Medical Association. The podcast that he did, where he said, I don't think systemic racism is the problem, it was disappeared off the web. When he returned to UCLA, he basically faced a show trial from his fellow academics. And of course, JAMA twisted itself into knots, decrying its own racism for even allowing this guy in the past to be on its masthead. And of course, the editor of JAMA was thrown out and replaced by a suitably intersectional female. So, it is amazing the punishment of dissenters. But I would say that I'm a dissenter, but I can't be canceled because I'm not in one of these institutions. But I think, again, we have noticeable disparities in how people respond to medical instructions that should be taken into account. And to say it's all systemic racism, I think, is way premature.
Okay, I know that was a lot. But I wanted to. Oh, you're saying you're logging out? Okay, have a good night. I know that was a lot. However, it is important for us to hear these conversations again with the idea of knowing where things are headed, so that way we are able to adjust accordingly. Now, we know that there are several factors that she's wrong in. So many of you had talked about the fact that no matter how wealthy you are, you have just as much of a chance of being a Black woman who has a maternal death if you are wealthy than if you are poor. So these are the types of things that we need to push back on her with regards to that. There is something, though, there is something with regards to socioeconomics and being able to actively go to prenatal care and things like that. So this is why I'm saying that there are things that she's saying that's totally loony. And then there are things that she's saying that I think we need to push out into the forefront as well. AE had mentioned, her being the type that if a Black woman is competent and skilled, that she would try to knock out, get out of the organization. Here's the thing. It is not enough for you to have technical skills and soft skills. In order for you to really make it in these organizations, you have to have a multicultural network of people who are going to have your back as well. Because if you have technical skills and soft skills, but you don't have that multicultural network of people, then unfortunately, it's going to be very difficult for you to to make it in some of these institutions and these organizations. So you're saying there is no court case following this woman? She doesn't have the court cases. She doesn't have the court cases, but there are court cases. There's a court case against the Fearless Fund right now, which is a venture capital fund that is specifically for Black women. It is being sued now because they're saying that you should not have VC funds that are specifically for one group of people. There are other court cases that are coming out now. And there are a lot of companies that are pulling back on their DEI efforts because of all of this. So, yeah. You're saying there will be no one to vouch for you. Yeah, exactly. So what I'm trying to say is, as you are, being a professional and navigating these waters, if a group of people invite you to lunch, go. If they invite you to happy hour, go. If they, if they're good people, nice people, go. Network. Do not be standoffish. This is what's going to keep you down when they start thinking about who we're going to cut and, this, that, and the third. It is important for you to have technical skills in whatever field you have. It is important for you to have your soft skills of leadership, etc. It is important for you to pick those projects that can help you get in front of your boss's boss that is going to make you promotable. And we've had that conversation on this channel. I think we had it a couple of weeks ago. But it is also important for you to have that multicultural network of people who can vouch for you. All right. Let us go to getting into school. Getting into school, she did another podcast, and I am going to show you a piece of it. Oh, this wasn't a podcast, sorry. This was a lecture that she did. Let me go to 2710. Here we go. Oops.
Near greater racial proportionality. Asians are starting to get radicalized on.
And move this back a little bit. And let's listen to this.
Because they want to engineer greater racial proportionality. Asians are starting to get radicalized on this. The equity argument against racial preferences has been the favored one for conservatives for years, that this is reverse discrimination. It's not fair to people who have done nothing. Asians are not responsible for slavery. And frankly, none of us today are either, unless you do believe in the inheritance of acquired characteristics. And we all somehow now are bearing the genes of and responsibility of slaveholders. And let me also put in an aside here. Our racial history is appalling. It is sickening. We were a white supremacist country. We were an apartheid country. Whites treated blacks with excruciating cruelty, contempt, gratuitous nastiness until very recently. We are not that country today. We are not. As incredible as it would have been to expect that even by the 1960s, there is not a single mainstream institution today that is not twisting itself into knots to hire and promote as many Black applicants as possible.
I forgot. We had already gone through that. So I had listened to this before, and we are going to, let's see here, 3642. I apologize for that. She said that in another thing as well. So I double counted that. Let's listen to this.
All coming down. People like us have to speak up. In the book, I'll give you an honest description here of what like writers and speakers are under. You're supposed to always have a positive solution, even though I'm a.
Okay, so this is her solution. This is her solution. I want you to listen to this.
Pessimist, and I don't necessarily feel very optimistic, but audiences want to believe there's hope and there's something they can all rally behind. So I'm scratching my head, and what can I do with a solution? Because it frankly looks to me a very tough nut to crack. So I came up with an idea of an institution that would be apart from any particular institution, like somebody's medical school or somebody's tech startup, that would be ready to snap into action whenever there is a amazingly, surprisingly courageous scientist like Norman Wang, an electrophysiologist at the University of Pittsburgh, who ran a lab, had all sorts of students that he was advising, top in his field. He dared write an article in a scientific journal saying racial preferences in medicine are not working out. We've tried them, they're not working out. We're lowering our standards. We're not helping advance medicine. We're not helping the students. He was completely canceled. He was taken off his post. He was stripped of his research capacity. He's not allowed to have any contact with students. This is what happens. People are destroyed by telling the truth. And so I thought maybe if we could have an organization that would have at their fingertips data on the academic skills gap, put them out there on the crime gap, so that when the police are being vilified and we have now a total recruiting and retention crisis, there is hardly a big city police department that is anywhere close to the number of officers it needs in order to fight crime, even if the prosecutors were willing to actually bring a case against a shoplifter or a thief. But they don't have the officers to make those arrests because there's been such a post-George Floyd flight from the profession. So if we could have an organization that would give the data to support this, that's one hope. Otherwise.
Okay, so her first thing is she's very much about, protecting the institutions, right? We know that. She also said when because AE said, something very important. Right now, these companies do want to have Black women. Yes. My thing is the tides may turn in the next 5 years because there are court cases that are challenging these things. And even Heather admits that there are court cases that are challenging these systems. Big companies that have lawyers are going to be able to fight. However, smaller companies are not going to choose to fight. Smaller companies are going to say, okay, whatever, meritocracy. And guess what? 50% of employed people in this country are employed by small businesses. The supermajority of small businesses get employees from people they know. If they put a job ad out, then 50% again of people are employed by small companies. The other thing, 20% of Black people are employed by the government. 20%. So if the government ever is sued with regards to these standards, what is going to happen to Black employment? Black unemployment is already so high. These things are important for us to just keep track of, basically. Let's keep listening to what she has to say here.
All I can say is courage, refuse to apologize, refuse to back down, because at this point, I believe there is a good argument to be made for racial etiquette. And as I say, these are uncomfortable things to talk about. Nobody wants to hear about it. But the time for racial etiquette is over. Because as long as racism remains the only allowable explanation for racial disparities in a medical school, in an Alzheimer's lab, in a classical music orchestra, in a bank, in your corporation, in a newspaper, as long as racial disparities remain the only allowable explanation, it's all coming down. And we have to be able to fight back with the actual explanation, which are these tragic disparities that we can all agree need to be fixed.
So let me talk about one thing here as she continues. Let me talk about one thing here. And that is right now, Capitalism wants DEI because it is good for the bottom line. Capitalism wants DEI because it's good for the bottom line. If she is right, and if our institutions, our medical institutions, our research institutions get weakened because so much that it reduces profitability, things are going to definitely change in those areas. So AE had mentioned the fact that corporations love Black women. Now they do. However, now is the time for you to get your technical skills up, your soft skills, and your multicultural networks. Because I believe the slash is coming. We've got artificial intelligence to contend with. We've got robotics to contend with. We've got a shifting and changing structure with regards to affirmative action and DEI programs in this country. And we all have to be prepared for that. We all have to be prepared. Let's keep listening.
We all have different explanations or solutions for fixing them, but they need to be solved at the core spot, at the family, at the earliest ages of childhood, to socialize children, to get rid of the anti-acting white ethic, which penalizes many Black students who are doing their homework, who are taking their textbooks home, who believe that they can meet standards, who want to learn. And if they are criticized by their peers for acting white, that's something that is very hard to overcome.
How many of us have talked about this? This is why I don't totally bash Heather McDonald, because there are sentiments in, especially the hood, which a disproportionate number of Black people live in the hood, that if that is a smart young person, they are called acting white for studying, for getting to class on time, things like that. How many of us have been told we are Oreos and we're acting white just because we speak proper English, etc.? Now, it is not the whole story. It's not the whole story. I understand that. But there are things that she's saying that is true with regards to the academic skills gap. Her whole thing is the solution needs to start in the home. It cannot come from government. And there's a large part of that's correct. So let's keep going.
That has to change. But 22 years down the line, saying, well, the solution for this is to get rid of standards of medical competence or engineering or chemistry and have double standards of admission, that is not how we solve it. And we have to start explaining why our institutions are not at present racially proportionate. We can hope that they will be with a more honest, the only way they will be is with a more honest discourse. And it is paternalistic, it is condescending to lower standards rather than saying, we know that everybody can meet those standards.
Okay, so that was the last thing that I had with regards to Heather and her comments. She obviously said a lot. I know a lot of you thinking that it was a lot of rambling and things like that, but here's the thing. There is a major amount of money that is going behind her principles in the back, like behind the scenes. Let me just say it like that. And we as upwardly mobile Black women, we are definitely going to have to keep an eye on this, know that certain things are coming, know that certain things are changing, and be able to act accordingly and actually start right now. So Brown Skin Girls is right. Get those certs, whatever the certs are. If you're in tech, great. If you're not, whatever it is, like I'm a loan officer now, so I got my certifications with regards to that. Whatever it is, get those certs. She's right. Stay in school. Take any training offered to you. Take it now. Take it now while it is close to free. So many companies out there are willing to give us all the training that we need. Get into those organizations, network with all races. Brown skin girls is absolutely right. Make sure you can't be told you are there because you are Black. She is absolutely right. And if you do have an issue at the current place you are, you always want to have a network where you could leave and be employed next week. That is how strong your network needs to be, right? Yeah, and you're saying you're typing too fast. I knew what you were saying, though. I disagree, AE. I think that things that Heather is saying applies to Black millennials. I do. But we disagree, and that's fine as well. Kitty in the City is in the building saying I'm taking a course on SQL and data analysis because Cherie said to get those tech skills up. Yay! I'm doing my shimmy, girl. I'm doing my dance. You can't see me, but I'm doing it for you. Congratulations. And thinking of finishing my degree. The only reason I think, especially if you don't have kids right now or anything else holding you back to finish your degree, is because there maybe comes some point in the future where you want to get promoted, but the only way you can get promoted is if you have a degree. And if you wait to have kids and a husband and responsibilities to get your degree, then my concern is that it may cause you to hit a corporate ceiling. So, I'm not telling you to get the most expensive degree out there. If you can find a company to pay for it, definitely. But that's the only reason why I'm like, yeah, please, if you can, please get a degree. Yeah. Donald Watts is in the building. She is a foot soldier for the group she's advocating for, using her voice as a weapon. Yeah, I would agree with that. But let's be real, Donald. There are some things that she's saying that's true. That's true. And now she's going to the extreme with her hypotheses, right? But there are things that we as parents, as grandparents, as aunts and uncles, etc., should be doing in order to especially help our children. Fresh Progress is in the house. I agree on the paternalistic, on mass in Black communities, education, delayed gratification are not valued. That's true. All right. Let us see here. I got a couple other things I want to show you with regards to some of the current issues that are happening. These are just some articles that I have. So, from college advising to teacher preparation, affirmative action ruling may reshape K-12. Remember, we've been talking about this. And some of you are saying, well, Cherie, like K-12, how is this, how is what Heather is saying and these college admissions, why does that even matter? One of the things that Heather said is that Black children, less than 1% of Black children, have the academic skills to do this elite work at these elite universities. If we're not able to get into these classes in K through 12, or our kids are not, that teaches them the things that they need to know in order to prepare to get into these elite universities and medical schools. She didn't really say law schools too much. She talked more about medical schools and scientific schools so that we can get research grants for our health issues and concerns. If we're locked out of those things, that can have repercussions far into the future. So that's the reason why I wanted to show this blog to you. So, though directly aimed at college admissions policies, the impact of the U.S. Supreme Court's decision to end affirmative action stands to affect a host of K-12 issues, including diversity initiatives, access to high-level courses, and teacher preparation. So I didn't even bring up the fact that there would be fewer Black teachers. There are already so few Black teachers out there. This could affect even more than that. So I believe I had something highlighted here somewhere Let's see here. Did I not highlight anything in this article? I'm sorry, everybody. I might not have highlighted anything in this article, but I thought I did. Programs that support Black students may rethink their approach. Black students in K-12 districts will be particularly impacted because of the message the Supreme Court has sent about race-blind admissions. The Sachs Foundation runs a program that offers mentorship and educational opportunities to 176 Black male students across Colorado. The program is heavily focused on access to higher education for students, including offering them college counseling, tours of colleges, and opportunities to attend academic and cultural events. It allows them to take an unpaid internship by paying students a stipend during those internships. So imagine if these types of programs that are specifically for young Black men get cut, or not get cut, but are told you have to now open up these programs to every race of person in Colorado. What kind of impact that these kinds of things would have? So diversity in teacher preparation programs may be at risk as well, et cetera, et cetera. So next thing that I wanted to show you was USA Today, because it's not just affecting K through 12. We are also seeing that Asian Americans are now suing with regards to the bamboo ceiling. The bamboo ceiling is basically so many Asian Americans have felt that they have been denied leadership in tech companies because they're Asian American. So now they're suing with this as well. So after stints at Disney, Google, and Twitter, I cannot say this person's name, joined Facebook and Instagram owner Meta in January 2020. Her job on the youth policy team was to protect children and teens from bullying, harassment, and other forms of abuse. But Jaya Kumar, I guess it is, an Asian American originally from Singapore, says she couldn't shield herself from racial bias on the job. So now she is suing because she was trying to be promoted. And she says here, quote, "I've never felt more keenly that as an Asian woman, I'm destined to be a worker. I'm not destined to be a leader," she said in an interview. And that's an awful feeling. Jaya Kumar is one of a growing number of Asian Americans in the tech industry breaking their silence and going public with charges of discrimination and retaliation. So look, a lot of stuff is happening here. And just check your comments as I am going here. Yeah, the Indians are noticeably silent, but she's an Indian, so, you know. Another thing, this is what I was talking about the VC fund. Man behind U.S. Supreme Court's affirmative action decision sues the VC fund supporting Black women-owned businesses. So we are unfortunately the lowest hanging fruit. They're going to come after our institutions first. This is why this is important. It's saying here, a Black venture capital fund, Fearless Fund, has been sued by a conservative activist. Edward Blum played a role in the U.S. Supreme Court's 2023 decision to reject affirmative action in college admissions. According to Reuters, the nonprofit led by Blum alleges that the Fearless Fund is practicing unlawful racial discrimination. The claim states that the firm is violating Section 1981 of the Civil Rights Act of 1866, a U.S. law barring racial bias in private contracts, by making only Black women eligible in a grant competition. So this is a current lawsuit. I actually got word of this by email because I'm on the email of oh goodness, I can see her right now, and I can't think of her name, but one of the limited partners of this Fearless Fund sent us an email alerting us about this lawsuit. So if this lawsuit prevails, and it may have to go up to the Supreme Court, and if it prevails, any kind of funds like this that are going to be distributed are going to have to start being distributed underground. Um, I don't know how you know if you're an AA hire. You might talk to HR, but I would say even if you are an AA hire today, get to the top 10% of your tech skills and your soft skills. So that way, even if you are an AA hire, like people know that you're damn good at your job. So I don't think there's any other way to get around this. And then we've also talked about the SBA as well, putting a temporary pause on 8A program application submissions. So 8A is how the U.S. government um, they have targets with regards to minorities and the amount of government contracts that minorities get. The government spends $500 billion a year, $500 billion a year, and we're supposed to get a portion of those contracts as set asides. Because of what happened with the Supreme Court, now any new applications have been put on pause. So this woman is saying here, the Federal District Court of the Eastern District of Tennessee on July 19, 2023, enjoined SBA's 8A program from applying the rebutable presumption of social disadvantage to members of designated groups, based generally on race and ethnicity. We anticipate this decision will have significant effects on the 8A program, though the timing, extent, and permanency of those effects is still very much up for speculation and debate at this time. That said, SBA has confirmed that it has temporarily paused the submission of new 8A program applications until further notice. The SBA appears to be taking the quote, wait until we tell you otherwise, unquote, approach to the new 8A program applications. But the above quote also mentions that SBA plans to update current 8A program applications with further guidance. The final thing I want to show you is oh, and I did want to say here that I looked because I wanted to find out if white women were eligible to be a part of the 8A program, and they are. This blog here is saying they have assisted. Our firm has assisted companies owned by Caucasian women and disabled veterans in obtaining 8A certification. So this is not just going to affect Black people, Hispanics, Asian Americans. This is also going to affect white women as well. And let me come here and see what you all are saying. You're going to bed. Okay, brown skin girls, I'm almost done. Someone might sue Goldman Sachs for the Black Women Program. I didn't even think about that, but you are absolutely right. Now, Goldman Sachs has a lot of different programs. They have one for Black women, one for Hispanics, one for other groups of people, but you are absolutely right. These companies might get sued if that Fearless Fund lawsuit works. Other companies are going to start to get sued. This is why I'm saying to you now, if there is an opportunity you see where they're helping specifically Black women or Black people, and you want to do it, I would suggest you hop in now. Do not wait. Do not wait. Initially, I said 5 years is how long you're going to have, but these people, they're very strategic, and this stuff may, what do you call it? Go up the not corporate, the courts, from the lower level to the Supreme Court. It could be 2-3 years before all of this stuff goes away. So take advantage of it now. Take advantage of it now. Hey, Mentor Shelley, these changes are far-reaching. We must maneuver through this tactfully and strategically. You are absolutely right. Play chess, not checkers. Fresh Progress is saying they are coming for everything. 8A certs, grants. It also sucks in mass. The rappers, celebs, and Black upper class are silent. I agree with that. I don't think the rappers know what to say. But I think some of the celebs are on strike with, their own problems, the actors and things like that. So who knows? But I wanted to show you one other thing, and I want to show you this because I thought this was ironic. This is the National Minority Supplier Development Council, and who they are. Fortune 1000 companies, really, Fortune 1000 companies, they also have goals of giving contracts to minority businesses. There's a group of them, large group of them, that come to this organization, the National Minority Supplier Development Council, in order to find minority-owned companies to do business with. Why? Let's take companies like Google or Amazon or, all of the major companies, Hilton Hotels, etc. They buy all sorts of supplies from vendors, right? And they're trying to have about 25% of their supplies come from minority owned businesses. So this group is the one that kind of quote unquote certifies your business as a minority owned business. Well, I want you to look at this. First of all, I'm going to show you here at the very bottom. Asian woman Ying McGuire is the CEO and president of the National Minority Supplier Development Council. There are a lot of Black people, though, that belong to this organization. This is their statement on the Supreme Court's affirmative action ruling and the impact on minority businesses. She says here, this is again the Asian CEO, today's ruling by the Supreme Court on affirmative action, so this is from a couple of months ago, will have significant generational impacts on the business community, particularly for supplier diversity and business diversity programs that strengthen critical supply chains and promote economic development in underserved communities. As the CEO and president of this council, I am deeply concerned about the ramifications of this decision. Diversity is the strength of America, but for far too long, systemic discrimination has hindered opportunities for people based on color in education, jobs, healthcare, business, and technology. Affirmative action programs have been essential in advancing inclusion and economic opportunities, recognizing historical narratives of marginalized communities and addressing present-day inequities. I want you to come here to how this could impact us economically, because it's not just about going to Harvard and Yale and places like that. It is about your kids not getting the education that they need. And now it's about to affect our businesses as well. She says here, this decision will only strengthen my resolve to ensure that all minority businesses have the economic dignity to achieve the American dream and reach our goal of achieving $1 trillion in annual revenue for certified MBEs. MBEs are minority business enterprises. Their organization will continue its over 50-year legacy of advocating for access to the American dream for minority businesses. Our success is historic and unmatched, connecting over 15,000 MBEs to more than 1,700 corporations, resulting in $482 billion in economic output annually and sustaining 1.8 million jobs with over $136 billion in total wages earned. Ladies, why am I bringing this up? Very simple. I'm bringing it up because all the things that Heather McDonald talked about, and the court cases that we have seen is going to have a ripple effect. It doesn't matter that Heather McDonald's information is skewed because conservatives for the past 30, 40 years have been stacking the courts. And these laws and policies are about to shift because the courts have been stacked. And I'm conservative. And still I'm like, okay, but you all have to be ready for this. So I'm just going to give people, like, if you want to come, I put the StreamYard in, you can come and give me like just a little snippet of what you're thinking. Cause it's 8:00 here on the East Coast and it's close to my bedtime. But Lovely is in the building. So are they just going to go after the Black community and remove all of our grants and funding? Wouldn't white America still have to deal with the intense competition from Asians? Well, let's talk about the first part of your question. It is the Black community is being the scapegoat for this, but basically, all of the grants that are just for Black people or just for Asian people, those are going away. In my opinion, those are going away. The funding, we have always had difficult time getting funding, but yes, the funding just for Black people is going away. If there is a, Ash Love, I see you, give me a second. If there is a, like Black is Tech, for example, or any kind of organization, Sisters in Sales, etc., corporations may consider not being sponsors of those organizations or not giving them access to certain training because now you're considered favoring one group, one racial ethnic group. So yeah, Black people are the scapegoats for this. But, part two, what you're asking about, are white Americans concerned about the competition from Asian Americans? I don't know. I don't know. So, Ash Love, welcome.
Hello, good evening, Sherry. How are
Good
you?
evening. I am good. I hope I didn't depress everybody too much, but this is an important conversation.
No, I'm not depressed. It's just what's said is not surprising. I just think with this conversation, the big question is, yes, we can network, yes, we can join multi groups to elevate or go upperly mobile, but how do we compete moving forward or navigate moving forward? Because at this stage, they're literally trying to make Black women or Black people in general as the lower tier class. They're trying everything and everything through these lawsuits. So, I mean, that is the big question. So how do we compete? Because we not only compete with our fellow non-Black Americans, but you're also competing with people from abroad who comes with a visa or who's refugees, or even if they're not refugees, or if they're undocumented, you're competing with them as well. So, and that's one thing. Another thing is, what that lady said, about acting white. She's right about that, because even though when I went to college, some of the people who does come like a poor economic background was saying to me, Ash Love, you talk like white, why are you trying to be white? But they don't understand that I wasn't raised in a poor economic area or city growing up. So they don't understand that. And they don't understand that you can't just go by having that, I have to say, having that hood mentality. And if you keep on doing that, then you will lose. And another thing, like, I hate saying this, but sometimes you cannot think about, how could I put this? You cannot think about pro-Black or like the pro-Blacks that are on television all the time crying racism. Those days are over. Back probably in your generation, you can do that and, get the resources that you want, or vice versa. But for my generation, if we were to say that, right, because I'm from a younger generation, they would tell us that, hey, you pulled a race card. It's like a type of tactic that they use. So, or kind of like a psychological tactic they use. So I think moving forward, regards to the affirmative action in schools and in the workplace, I think we just need to find a way to navigate like a bit more strategic and a bit more smarter in terms of how do we approach things, because if we don't do that, then we will lose. So, but yeah, that's what I have to say.
I agree with you. So your first question was, how do we compete? We compete by being the best and knowing everybody and having those networks, knowing the right people, making sure the right people know us, and being the best when we get there. There really is no other way. If I'm going to put this in Heather's terms just because it's easier to describe, but if our SAT scores are required and they're not where they should be, we're going to get cut. If there are other, what do you call it, objective metrics that we need to have that we don't have, we're going to get cut, right? If our kids are supposed to be in advanced calculus or whatever by the 12th grade and they're not, there was a time when, like at my age, where we would still be let through in order to, go into these elite institutions. That's not happening anymore. That is the reason why I also said I can't remember who it was, I think it was Kitty in the City, thinking about going to get her degree. I'm very concerned for Black women who don't have a degree. I know there's so many people online are like, don't get your degree, why are you wasting your money? But that was a way when I was younger, and more importantly, my mother and father, that was a way that they kept us out as well. So, stacking the deck in our favor is going to be important. With regards to the pro-Blacks crying racism, I think they're still doing that today, and they're still doing that very well. I think that the corporations and some of the governments, especially in our cities, are acquiescing to that. That is why, unfortunately, we have such issues with crime in our communities. And we have, you know, backlash. For example, if we see something that we don't like racially, and enough of us start talking about it on social media, sometimes things will get pulled, off of shelves and things like that. But that doesn't always work. That doesn't always work. For example, we were saying, hey, we still need to keep affirmative action, and that was overruled. So, but I definitely think the tide is turning with regards to that as well.
And can I ask something with the colleges when you say
Sure.
you might need to be in the next 5 years? I'm in university right now, and it's getting really harder to
Mhm.
enter to certain programs, even though the certain programs they lower the standard to like at least a 2.0 GPA.
Mhm.
But I know that's been around, but you need certain courses. But I know it's getting harder in terms of registering for a course, and also purchasing books and vice versa.
Mhm.
So even though there's some professors say, hey, if you get a seat, just go and just take it and let it go. But I just think at this point, ever since affirmative action come to play, and like I said, we're the punching bags, you can't make an average grade anymore.
Absolutely not. You got
You
to be
can't.
B plus and above, or at least a B.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would
Mm-hmm.
absolutely agree with that. Um, I didn't play this part because it was like, it would have been really hurtful to hear this, but there was a conversation that Heather had with the Black guy, actually, Glenn Lowry, and they had a question with regards to, are Black people biologically incapable of scholastic aptitude? And they went back and forth and talked about this as well. And, their discussion ended up with, we don't have the data to say whether Black people are or are not biologically, genetically incapable of doing this type of work. Now, you and I know that that's some BS, right?
Mm-hmm.
But these are the types of things that are being discussed academically as well. And it is very difficult. Like, if Barack Obama, for example, and I know he didn't do much of anything for Black people, so, but if Barack Obama did not grow up in the environment that he did, and he did not end up at Harvard and he did not end up at law school, and he did not end up at the top, one of the top law firms, he would have never been president, right? There are a lot of
Right.
things, there are a lot of things that we will not have access to, like no Black people will have access to if you don't have Black people in these elite institutions. There's certain research that probably won't get done unless we are at certain research institutions, which is why it scares me to death, some of the things that Heather is saying, because I'm like, but who's going to advocate for us medically? Who's going to, especially medically, right? Um, and Level Up Single Mom is saying, hi, hello, how you doing? Um, so yeah, did you have anything else?
No, that's about it. All I can say is that, ladies, if you're in university, just hurry up, get your degree, get your certification, and, develop your skills as you can. And just took what Miss Sherry said about, if they invite you to places, just go. If they offer you training, take the training, because it will help you to elevate yourself in regards to being economic mobile, because nowadays it goes by like who you know,
Mm-hmm.
versus it's just versus merit. Merit just won't do, and I think that's the problem with the Asian community. They think, also majority of them, they think they can just get leadership, or like, I don't want to open a can of worms. They think it's just leadership and stuff, but it's not just merit alone. You get into these schools,
Mm-hmm.
it's more than that. You
Yes,
know, it's more. It's not just merit. So
I
I
agree
think
with
that's
that.
an issue. Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's all I have. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Ash Love, for coming in. And AE is agreeing with you. She's saying exactly to Ash Love. So, and Roma is saying, if this isn't more of a reason to be hypergamous and only date men who can put you in a higher social circle as well as financially support your children's future, I don't know what is. Absolutely, absolutely correct. You are absolutely right. I'm going to do a show pretty soon on the different, there's a new socioeconomic hierarchy that was being discussed as well. And I'm going to do a show about that as well. But who the father is so important, you know? And like Ashlove said, taking advantage now of the opportunities and getting to know people. So with that, we're going to have a session on networking where you're going to create your own customized networking plan. It'll be in the next couple of weeks. It's going to be on Zoom. The only way for you to get an invitation is to be on my email list, bwmakingmoney.com. That's bwmakingmoney.com. I do agree with AE with regards to not letting Heather McDonald and the things she said get you so off track and so derailed. Focus on your technical skills within your job, whatever those skills are that's going to get you to top 10%. Focus on your social skills and your soft skills. Focus on your multicultural networks. If you have children, asking the right questions with regards to what classes do my kids need to take in order to be eligible, if they have the academic aptitude, to be eligible for elite universities, and what prerequisites do they need in order to get there, and having an environment that really pushes that scholastic aptitude. I cannot say it enough, because um, being able to get into, again, if this is what your child chooses to do, being able to get into those elite universities, the networking that happens there, this is the reason why the legacy parents want to make damn sure that their kids can still go to these elite universities, because 30 something percent of billionaires, future billionaires, go to these elite universities. Your kids and the social network that they would have can set them up for life. So, yeah, it is so important. It is so important for us to have, you know, a 10-year plan at least for ourselves, and have a real academic plan and social plan for our kids. So that is it. I hope you all have a wonderful week. I'll be back sometime this week to talk with you ladies more about the economy and things like that. Other than that, I will see you all later. Take care.